Hi guys, my name is Alex Pecoraro, and for my HCI 514 research project, I did utilizing cross-classroom collaboration as a student learning tool. All right, so to give you an overview, I'll kind of go through my abstract here and give you an idea of some of the questions I wanted to answer through my research. So the goals of my research were to look at the effects of cross-cultural student collaboration as a learning tool. As technology is improving, the world is becoming more and more connected. Cross-cultural teams in the workplace can offer fresh and unique perspectives, low cost, and productivity across different time zones. Because of this, we're seeing a spike in cross-cultural teams as virtual communication is improving, especially. Some companies have even done away with traditional brick and mortar operations, electing for completely virtual workplaces. One company like Envision comes to mind. So basically what questions I wanted to ask. I wanted to look at what's being used to teach students how to effectively collaborate and work with their global peers in learning environments. I also wanted to look at what are some of the positive and negative effects of using cross-cultural student collaboration as a learning tool. And then I also wanted to touch on what potential, if any, does student cross-cultural collaboration have on shifting Hofstede's traditional models of dimensions of natural cultures. All right, so why is this important now? Well, it offers a competitive advantage to corporations, and don't we all want to be employable by these corporations? So using global resources for an organization is a competitive advantage for a couple of reasons. The first one and the major one is a company can have resources across multiple time zones, which allows their members to constantly be working, resulting in higher productivity. Not only that, but having people in multiple time zones and brick and mortar in multiple time zones allows for preventing risk. Basically, having places in multiple geographies prevents risk for multinational corporations and the likelihood that in the event that the company experiences some sort of human, natural, or technological disaster. Not only that, but this saves a lot of costs, especially when it comes to employing resources. Costs for relocation can be taxing for any organization, and I think a lot of us are hearing about how hard it is for some of these companies to hire right now, especially tech talent. Virtual teams allow for a corporation to open up their talent pool. Not only that, but they can outsource work wages to less costly countries like places like India, while saving money on both relocation and having to interview those candidates. So what's being done to prepare students for this changing workforce? Well, many teachers are doing away with traditional lecture-style classrooms and moving to more project-based work. However, there are some nuances that are important when facilitating these student teams in order to set them up for success, with the first one being cultural sensitivity. And what this really looks at is the cultural similarities and differences between group members. This can be a formulating member or a formulating member for team success, which can include things like leadership, risk tolerance, uncertainty, power distance, pre-planning of activities, and assertiveness. So really, cultural sensitivity is touching on Hofstede's cultural models. Basically, they're saying that this will likely become more noticeable when cultural differences between team members are more obvious. So in order to really facilitate these teams and to teach them what a real working environment looks like, you have to add a lot of diversity in these teams so students can experience that diversity that they'll see in the real world. Another big thing is setting up these groups with time zone differences. It's crucial for teachers. These students need to understand real working conditions. Really a big stressor for a lot of global teams is time zone differences. It becomes a lot harder to facilitate projects, delegate tasks, which creates a lot of stress and conflict among teams. So in order to really facilitate a real working condition group team, you need to allow for your students to be cross borders and acting in different time zones. Another important factor to look at is allowing for subgroups. Basically what this is when members of a team co-locate, which, and form a subgroup, which could be two, which could be three people. Some argue that this could strengthen or it could weaken the group. However, it promotes real conditions. If you think about it, there's going to be offices in different locations around the world in a real company. In each one of these offices, they're forming their own subgroups and mini cultures. It's important that teachers allow for this because it creates, again, a real working condition. This next slide, these are some of the learning tools that teachers are implementing in their classrooms to facilitate this type of global group collaboration. I'm not going to touch on them too much because we use a lot of them, but researchers are saying the best way to approach this is to allow for a mixed method when it comes to the collaboration tools that students are using, which basically means that students should be using email. They should be using social media. They should be using video chatting. They should be using any of the new tools that are coming out, and there's a lot of them coming out daily. So basically, they say at the same time, you should allow for students to pick what tools they're using. In a real working environment, a team's going to pick what tool fits best for them, for their project and their needs. So teachers need to allow for students to also do that. But they say promote mixed methods. So I wanted to touch on the benefits and limitations of global student collaboration. The first one, and what I've been touching on quite a bit throughout this, is employability. Companies want people with the leadership skills necessary to both lead and work in groups across countries. Global teams are on the rise for all these companies. It's crucial that people are able to work in these teams and can adjust to these teams and be productive in these teams. So that's, again, one of the big reasons here. Not only that, but another benefit of global student collaboration is that it allows international students, especially, to ease into their new environments. They're forming relationships, they're collaborating on group projects. It allows for them to kind of get accepted into the group. And then on top of that, it allows for expanding of social networks. These students are growing their social networks globally, which can allow for new opportunities and chances to work on projects down the line as well. A huge limitation with group work, global group work, is that it does promote a lot of tension. These time zones, these differences in culture, can sometimes lead to group members fighting and arguing and not being able to delegate tasks. But at the same time, this happens in the real world all the time in the workforce. So again, it's a huge limitation of this, but it's a limitation that's probably necessary. So when looking at Hofstede's cultural model shift, I'm not going to touch on this too much because I'd rather have you guys read my paper and what I have, my conclusion here. But basically what I argue is that as this collaboration increases, new values, ideas, and cultures rub off on participants in these groups, which alters and shapes their views on the world. Because of this, national cultural models are shrinking as our values are no longer held to our countries of origin. They could be tied to organizations now or groups. So I argue that, Hofstede's model is shifting because of group collaboration. So yeah, that's all I have for you. Thanks so much for listening, guys. I really appreciate it, and have a good one.